Welcome back to Your Story Medicine. Today, I am with Pamela and Dyalekt, who are the founders of Brunch and Budget. Brunch and Budget is about sharing and building together on common ground. As we uncover what you really value and what you truly want your life to look like, they can put in motion the strategies and tactics that will bring you financial clarity. Brunch and Budget isn't about brunch or even about budgeting. Instead, it gives people like us the space to have real, open, and vulnerable conversations when it comes to money and going down to the root of why it is, especially folks of color, have a very difficult relationship with it. So, we're going to get to the heart of why it is we need to have these conversations in the first place so that we can heal and open ourselves up to receive even more of it. So welcome, Pamela and Dyalekt.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank
June.
you. Yes,
Oh,
dope to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you. This is gonna be good.
Yeah.
And I guess to be super specific, Pam is the founder of Brunch and Budget. I hang around and don't have a real position. I co-host the podcast. And we founded Sea Change together, that
we did.
section. We originally were considering it separate from Brunch and Budget, but that don't make no kind of sense.
I mean, he's so integral to why Brunch and Budget exists the way it does that, I mean, you know.
I'm just trying not to F Scott Fitzgerald. Okay?
Oh my God. They're so freaking cute. Also, I don't know how you all do it as running a business together as a couple, and y'all had a baby that experienced its first year in a pandemic. So, you know what? It's been challenging for a lot of us, and it's also been such a beautiful opportunity for growth. I've come to understand that when there are more problems that exist in the world, it's also more opportunities to solve them. So let's just be compassionate with ourselves and celebrate. So first question I love to ask is, what is it that you get to celebrate?
Oh, our baby.
Yeah, we do. We have a child. He happened right before the pandemic hit.
He was born October 2019. We had maternity leave, and then right when that ended, the pandemic happened. So the thing that I know I've been thinking about a lot is his first year would not have looked like this without the pandemic for a lot of reasons, but we wouldn't have seen him every single day and got to watch him grow up. And I think that has been one of the beautiful things about just being grounded, you know, and being at home.
Well, and I also like the thing that you were saying about, you know, opportunities coming from problems. And I think about the whole like beautiful struggle aspect of all this stuff. And I often vacillate back and forth between how I feel about it. And the thing that I celebrate and want to continue to celebrate is the people who continue to do what is in their heart and what the people ask of them, despite the problems and despite the fact that it seems to be more and more surmounting the will of those folks, which I guess I sometimes want to include myself in, but you know, the will of those people keeps me going.
Yeah, I mean, I think about just like the people who are already doing the work are still doing the work in the midst of all of this, and I think that has been a really beautiful thing to see. I also think that we are in a very dark place because we all knew it was going to get worse before it gets better. And I think I try and remember that too.
Well, and you know, as a teacher also, we're going to throw a whole bunch of things we dig. That moment when folks get it. Yeah. And we get a lot of that, especially, you know, lately people have been at home, they've been introspective, they've been looking at the news, they've been seeing what happened, you know, folks uprising, all this stuff. So when folks hit us up and they're like, you know, you've been preaching this stuff to me for years and I ain't really get it, but I get it. That's been a lot.
Yeah.
You can always get it.
Hey, before every expansion comes contraction. That's right. Okay, get free, poet. I have to say that because I know that y'all are financial. I don't even know, financial planners, whatever the formal title is.
I'm a financial planner.
And
accredited financial counselor.
Shout out to the AFCPE. I was planning on taking my test, but never take it in person, so I am in master of ceremony.
Well, yeah, and actually, so I am actually a former student of your program, and one of the things that resonated with me the most is that you're the both of you are not cis white men in suits talking about finances and dialect. We have this other cosmic connection where both you and I have a background in spoken word and hip hop. That's a whole nother life, y'all. And we ended up in, well, that's during separate times in Cambodia working with a hip hop NGO. And I saw your picture in Cambodia and I was like, I know that place. I know those kids. I know that person. This is way too strange. I'm supposed to be working with y'all. So, okay, let's take money.
By the way, I want to digress a little bit while we're talking about that, because this is another thing that I want to celebrate. I celebrate lots of artists. You know, we've lost some artists over the pandemic time, big names and small names and stuff like that. And I'm just going to put it out there, and your listeners can harass you about it. Let's get you on a track in 2021.
Oh my gosh.
Get you on a track. That's what I said. Pregnant pause and everything. Just put that out there.
I was like, you want to bring back that Jumake? Okay, hold on.
No. Like sexy.
Well, Jumake in her 20s was all about F the system, let's dismantle capitalism, and was married to the struggle. And I feel like Jumake now in her 30s, who survived Saturn return, is like, oh, more ease and flow and abundance. So let's take our titles out of the equation and share in your own words, how would you describe your medicine? And then we can eventually write a track about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's great. I mean, my medicine is very literal medicine. The oldest medicine of all is rhythm. I think it's everybody's medicine in one way or another. Once we understand our rhythm and we can put ourselves in the pocket, we're going to be all right.
Yeah. Ooh, I love it. I don't have as good of an answer. I'm like, dang it. Drop the mic right there.
No, we have to use it later.
No, you're right. We can't drop any mics.
Don't be dropping mics, y'all. Like damaging the equipment. Just like say what you're saying. Like put it down.
Put it down softly.
I have a spare mic for the days that I do drop mine.
Just gotta have a backup. I mean, the first thing that came to mind with that question is food. I am someone who has I have allergies, I have eczema, I have asthma, and there's a lot of things that I'm learning now, literally this year and this time, that I can eat and that I cannot eat. And I've been in denial about it for a while because I'm also someone who has kind of an unhealthy relationship with food. And I think that learning to accept food as something that can heal me is something that I'm really coming to terms with this year. And, you know, putting the time and the energy and the money towards it has been something that's become really important to me.
Wow, baby, that's really real.
Really?
Yeah. I just love the putting the time and energy and money towards stuff. It's so ill. I know where this is like ahead, but like so many times people will do like one or two of those three things. And I found in all aspects of everything, you kind of need to be putting all three of those.
That's true.
DIY culture would be like, put your time and energy, but not your money. Other things would be like, put your money towards it, but not your time and energy. And it all has to be some combination.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I will tell you, just to get real personal, I just found out that I can't eat eggs. Because of my eczema, I was literally eating like 3-4 eggs a day. And my dermatologist was like, try not eating eggs and see if it clears up. And in 2 days, it was gone. And I was like, oh my God, my business is called Brunch Budget. All I did was eat eggs for the last 4 years. Like so many eggs, you know, like things like that, where I'm just like really starting to really uncover like what medicine food can be.
Yeah, I have come to find that American brunch, it hurts my stomach, but Southeast Asian food, rice porridge, I can have that, like pho, I can have that for the rest of my life.
Yo. No, I'm sorry. I've always had, see, we're taking this to this food thing. I've always had trouble with breakfast. Like, it's never been a thing that made sense to me. You know, my parents like forcing it down my throat before I get to school. And then as an adult, I would like just skip it and stuff. When we went to Cambodia and we're having those bag soup breakfasts with noodles and vegetables and stuff in there, I was like, yeah, I could do that. And that's kind of what I've been doing ever since then for my breakfast. I made some brown rice ramen with eggs and bok choy this morning.
Yes. Okay. So let's dig into your ancestral lineage. And how has this also influenced the path that you're walking on today?
Yeah. Did you point to me because I'm starting?
Yeah. Right.
So I am Filipino and Chinese. I actually was born in the Philippines. I moved to the United States when I was 2. My grandparents brought me over here. And it's interesting because I guess I can tell the story now. But my grandma and my grandpa fell in love. But my grandfather was actually betrothed to someone else. And I know the drama, and he's Chinese and she's Filipino.
Yeah, because he came over from China.
He came over from China to the Philippines. And so he was betrothed to someone else. And he just like married my grandma instead. And took her last name instead of his so that he could remain in hiding. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what I should be. Anyway, but it's a really wild story. And I think a lot about how my last name is matrilineal. And I think it's really, there's a lot of my mom was a breadwinner in my family. I think there's a lot of strong women in my family. And I think that has influenced a lot of how I show up as a woman. And how I think about things and how I kind of go about things. I think that one of the reasons why I think I was so drawn to money and learning about money and teaching money and, you know, having my profession be around finance is because we're made to feel disempowered as women around it. And I saw my mom as someone who really took charge of that aspect of our lives. And it was something that I felt very ill-equipped to do because she didn't necessarily pass it on to me in a direct way. And so I dove into this profession and I see so much how empowering it is for women to feel like that they have confidence in this and can really take a hold of this stuff, you know, and take control over it. And so I think that that's influenced a lot of why I went down this path. And I say this because I actually have a literature degree. So I had no intention of doing any finance, anything. It's something that I actually tried to shy away from and rejected for a lot of my younger life. And then I saw how powerful it was when we taught kids this. I was teaching financial literacy camps for kids and in college, and I saw how powerful it was to teach kids at this young age something that I knew they were going to be able to take with them for the rest of their lives. So, and I think that it's funny because I never connected it to how I grew up. I never connected it to kind of the powerful women that have been part of my past, but I think that's a big part of it.
Wow, that's a really good one. See, now you got the mic drop and you like one. All right, mine's a little bit messier, but I'm gonna roll through it. So my background definitely has a direct effect on how I feel about money, and I'm just as surprised to be here. I'm probably more surprised because it took me even longer to start getting into it. My mother is Black African American family from the South, roots in South Carolina. She was born in Philadelphia. My father was a Russian Jewish immigrant. He came over on the boat fleeing the Nazis. He was like 1941 or 42. He was like a baby or born on the boat, something like that. They got together. It was ill. I did the research about Loving versus Virginia, about interracial marriage. And my parents met 2 years after Loving versus Virginia was enacted. So, you know, good timing for them. But weirdly enough, his family was never down with this whole black mom thing. I actually have an older brother who I haven't seen in over 30 years because he was from another marriage, another black woman. My, you know, dad lived in North Philly, dated a lot of sisters. And he was more visibly black than me. And my white Jewish family acted like he never existed. My father died when I was about 10 years old, and they rejected me and my mom. They fought to keep like inheritance money and any sort of like possessions away from us. And we went into this really deep funk. We were like, I guess, middle classy-ish. I'm coming to find out maybe it wasn't as much as I thought, but we were comfortable. We were fine. And then when my dad passed, we went to move in with my aunt. We were really out on money, and we were living in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which is literally the birthplace of the word racism, where they did the indoctrination camps for Native Americans, really awful, wild stuff. And it's just that way today. And all of that led to me first becoming a hustler for money, scrambling when I was like, between like 10 and 16, like doing whatever I could to get any kind of money and take care of us and our family. And it got to a point where by the time I graduated high school and I moved out on my own, I completely hated money. I was so over the whole enterprise of it, the transactional relationships, the fact that I don't talk to half my family. Pam has never met that side of my family, and I assume never will, unless some younger person reaches out and said, sorry about, my grandpa was a jerk. But that it ruined me towards money, and it made it so it was difficult for me to move ahead in my professional life. I would often like shy away from big money gigs or things that like seemed like I needed a compromise at all. I would live at the bare minimum, and when I did have any kind of windfalls, I would share them with my peoples. I did eventually get some of that inheritance, and I spent some of it on college, and the rest of it I blew on my friends, because I was like, I'm just not going to let those things control me. And the thing of it, as an educator, this messed me up. As I was teaching kids using hip hop and poetry and stuff like that, first it was about having fun and learning. Then it was about learning and beating these tests. And then it was about being able to take care of yourselves. And when I'm trying to teach a kid how to write a rhyme so they can beat someone in a debate, and they're like, yeah, but what about this job I need to get? I realized I had to make sure that I could flip the script to make sure that people of all learning styles were not only able to pass their classes, but feed themselves, and not only do that, but reach for more. Because too many times they ask our kids to get their heads above water when we want them to get out of the water, get on a boat, walk on water, whatever the metaphor is. So it always been something that was necessary in what I did and what was important to me, but I rejected it for a very long time until starting to jam with Pam and finding out the parts where we could be ourselves, we could be real, and we could create authentic, like you were talking about abundance earlier. Abundance only exists when we create it. So we can create abundance and then make that be a thing for folks and then not have to worry as much.
Yeah, I feel like our ancestors are having a party right now because my grandparents as well, at least from what I know on my mom's side, my grandfather he also had an arranged marriage and was like, peace, I'm gonna go marry my childhood sweetheart. And so you think that's TMI? I wrote a whole play about it. Okay. My first my first and only one woman show about how I am essentially the descendant of somebody who chose love. And so
amazing.
I love that.
I love
thank
it.
you. And Dyalekt, both of you, actually, what I love so much about connecting with other entrepreneurs of color who, like, for me, I believe that us stepping into these roles is a decolonial act because we are choosing to not just create abundance, but reclaim it. Because it's like back in the day, there was enough resources to go on. Food grew everywhere. You want to make a house? We'll do that instead of needing to save up and buy it. And now we're essentially learning the master's tools and generating our own resources from it and wanting to like give it back to the people. And a Dyalekt, I remember one of the workshops you facilitated was about the racist roots of insurance. And it blew my mind open because here's the thing. I went to school, I took ethnic studies classes, and I just feel like I walked away from college feeling so angry at the system without a solution. And instead it was like, okay, I'm going to like write my own story and work for a nonprofit because I don't know any other way to make an impact, only to get paid pennies, of course. But for you, it's like you talk about the roots which informs why it is so many of us don't feel safe when it comes to thinking about investing and to growing our money. But then there's like these rich white families, and let's just say it, who are having conversations about money at the table that we were never taught to have. And so actually, okay, so for folks who are hearing this for the first time and they're like, what? Give us a little glimpse of why not why you think why it is that so many folks of color are so adverse when it comes to insurance or investing or diversifying their income.
So many reasons.
Let's just focus on one.
Yeah, I mean, the very first thing I will say is that especially communities of color, we were taught that talking about money is a taboo, that you're not allowed to talk about it. You're not even share it with your immediate family.
It's rude.
It's rude to talk about it. It's all of that stuff. And it's kept us feeling alone in this, right? And one thing that we realize, and one thing that we're trying to break down with things like Brunch and Budget, is we have to talk about it, because this is how we can do all of this collectively together.
It's also mad hard to talk about, and I mean this on several levels. African enslaved folks were told that they would be killed if they could read. They would be killed if they started talking out against master. There are a lot of things that marginalized folks, enslaved folks, entrapped folks have to do to stay alive. The term sexism, I forget the exact quote, when it was first coined, the lady who was coining it was talking about how women use sexism because that is the language of our oppressors, and is the only way we can succeed is if we ride along this thing, and that's what we do. So when you hear about folks from Black communities being anti-intellectual, talking about like, oh, I don't want to read this and that and the other thing, this comes from not only our genetic memory, but also from the way that we've been socialized. So it's something that we have to understand, that within ourselves, this stuff is really hard because we've been beat with a stick about it. So how you expect us to be brave and poke our heads out when all we've seen is failure?
Yeah, and then more recently, how this has played out in the industry is that a lot of people of color have been burned by insurance agents, right? They've been sold too much insurance. They've been sold insurance that's too expensive. They've been sold insurance that lapses when they didn't know it was going to lapse. They've been sold investments that cost more money than the investment's making, you know?
And Black folks out there, New York life insurance was built on your backs. Literally. A company that exists today.
Literally, New York life
literally
insurance,
on the backs of your ancestors.
Yeah, they used to be property and casualty agents, and they would insure master slaves. They would insure
and pay them out.
And pay them out if a slave died.
How do you reconcile with that?
Yeah, and Walmart got caught for doing that to their employees. Walmart more recently was buying life insurance on their employees, and if their employees died, Walmart got the death benefit.
And this is why when we talk about racism, the racial wealth divide, and specifically the Black American experience, it's because this white supremacy system don't care about anybody. It don't care about white folks, Asian folks, nobody. Those Walmart
rich people.
Those Walmart employees was of every background. But what they did is they perfected the paradigm on Black folks, who people mostly let this stuff happen to, and then started to do it to everyone else. That Prop 22 stuff that's happening in California, where they firing everybody, as an indie, you know this from the arts, as an indie musician, I'm like, oh, that's what they've been doing to us.
Yeah,
that's the old paradigm.
Yeah, even learning from you that this harmful stereotype of like watermelons, for example. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So when I say that our ancestors were entrepreneurial, that is one example, and how that ended up getting flipped to be a very harmful stereotype. And it's like, whoa, like Black folks are the original entrepreneurs, if anything, and Indigenous folks of this country.
Yeah, I mean, in this country, definitely, yeah. Because as you say about like the more problems you see, the more opportunities arise, and the more work you do. It's just oftentimes they don't end up getting credit because, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So you just triggered the shit out of me, and now no, I'm just kidding. I'm sure you're doing it to a lot of our audience.
Yeah.
Because look, I'm somebody who, just hit six figures in my business. Did not study business formally, yay, but for me, it's like, I honestly don't feel any different. I'm just like, oh, okay, now how is it that I can generate more abundance so that I can be a crucial resource in the community? Because as much as I can be anti-capitalist, I'm like, I live in a capitalistic system. And my challenge, though, again, this is very vulnerable for my listeners, is that even though I've learned how to make money, I don't know how to keep it. And that doesn't mean that I go around splurging. It's that because in my 20s, I was just so used to choosing to be in service. I was organizing, and like I would, if I wasn't fundraising, I would take whatever it is I had and contribute. And I still see that same habit play out, even though I can say that I have like quote unquote financial abundance. And I put that in quotes because it's like people have this idea of, oh, I can't wait to reach 6 or 7 figures, only to realize that it's not like you can quit what you're doing and retire off of that. So you taught me that my money personality is a money monk.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And so at that time, I still didn't have a lot of money, but I have the same habit. So tell us about these money personality types and how it shows up in the ways that we spend.
This is awesome. Yeah, thank you. Behavioral psychology is one of the more important things that we've been digging into as we get further into the money experience, because it doesn't matter if you know the best practices, the facts, the figures, calculators, planners, have all the spreadsheets. If you're not going to do it, you're not going to do it.
Right, right. And the reason why we talk a lot about, genetic memory and, generational habits is because this stuff gets passed down to the point where we don't even know to question it.
It's common sense.
Right? It's just like, oh, this is just how it is. It's just how I am. This is just how people deal with money, right?
Oh man, we was just saying that a minute ago.
Yeah, exactly. And I love just hearing, June, that even with more money, you still have the same habits. I think that a lot of our habits are amplified as we make more money, because then we just like, I'm a complicator, for instance, let's dig into the money personalities for a little bit. Complicators have a tendency to overanalyze, overthink. We have spreadsheets for our spreadsheets. We like to feel in control of money, but to the point where we don't ever really feel in control of it. It never feels like there's going to be enough, because what if the worst case scenario happens, right? We're always thinking about worst case scenarios. We're always thinking about what if X could happen. And so I always feel like I need more money to make sure that like I can take care of whatever happens just in case, even though the worst thing that could happen hasn't happened, right? And I think with complicators, we have 4 money personalities. Complicator, you mentioned money monk, complicator is mine. And I think we have also a quiz, brunchandbudget.com/personality, if you want to find your money personality.
It's a 2-question quiz. It's really easy.
Super easy. But for complicators, one thing that I have had to learn to do is to let go and to really allow people like my partner to do some of the financial stuff, to also automate things, and to also, one thing that I have to ask myself all the time is, what is enough, right? Mm-hmm. Because for complicators, it will never feel like it's enough. So I have to be conscious of trying to think about, okay, but we do have enough right now. We do have enough. And if the worst case scenario were to happen, we will be fine. And those are the kinds of things that I remind myself as a complicator.
Yeah, which is something that I'm also a money monk, that I'm more likely to be saying to you. But we've done a couple of workshops about money personalities and relationships, and there is at least a slight tendency to date the opposite of your money personality. Yeah. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other factors involved, so it's not always like that. But there is that tendency, and you can even see she likes looking at all the stuff. I don't like looking at all the stuff. But the problem therein lies that you will look at everything, then I will look at nothing, and then at the end of the day, I'll be like, wait, why do we do this thing? This doesn't line up with our values. And you're like, well, I was going over the things and I just didn't talk to you about it. So then we realize that the best path for both of us is letting go a little bit of the thing that makes us uptight. Mm-hmm. And, as a money monk, the thing that makes me uptight is there's never enough for the world. So why should I ever worry about enough for me? Right? Talking about monks. What are those monks who believe that there's a finite amount of suffering in the world and they take on the suffering for other people? I tell you, and I don't like I'm not trying to sound like cool or whatever with this. If you could prove that with math, that was a real thing, I would put in some hours for some lashes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how we are. We're like, I could take it, whatever thing you're talking about, like our background and stuff. And my background being raised by a Black woman, I decided, well, I got to be strong and fine. If I got to take lashes, I got to take lashes so we can make the world better. And the thing of it is, if all of us continue to do that, then all of us remain underwater and none of us get enough. Yeah. So we have to figure out ways for me to be more meticulous, for you to let go and stop looking more, for us to find that center. And that's really where enough lies, because enough is, both sides is really bad. If you have way too little or way too much, it's both going to be a problem for you and your community.
Yeah.
Because when I don't have enough and I'm trying to do my thing and I fail, then I got to lean on my community even harder. It's like that emergency room versus just having health insurance thing.
Yep.
You want to just give folks time and insurance so they can go and do their thing, so they're not crashing the waiting room when it's emergencies.
One of the things that you've said about abundance in the past that I just remembered was that abundance doesn't exist unless everyone has access to it. Yeah. There's no such thing as abundance in a silo. There's no such thing as one person having an abundance and another person not. Right. Abundance can't exist unless we all have it.
That whole phrase, my money, is so wild, right? It's not my money, it's the money. And we're controlling where it goes. But it's like, if we treat it like an energy, it's not like, oh, my energy, like I'm gonna keep it forever, right? We're not hoarding energy. You got to pass that thing around. And also economics, that's how it works, right? How it works. You sit there and hoard it, then it's not money no more. Then it's like an antique.
Yeah, that honestly, that was one of my biggest learning lessons this past year as well, is that money doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to you, because I get on a lot of calls as well with people who feel so guilty, especially if they're like, oh, well, my parents were able to support me, especially when it's folks of color. And I'm just like, you know what? If I ever become a mother, I want to be able to provide that abundance for my child, to be able to have opportunities and make choices. So it's what if it's not your parents' money, but it was this energy, and we get to step into that flow of currency when we choose to open ourselves up to that. And at least for me, as somebody who is mentoring other women of color and gender nonconforming folks to step into entrepreneurship, is how is it that you can create a sacred offering that feels in alignment to you, and it won't even feel like you're selling, you just embody it.
That's still the hardest part.
It is.
I feel like we've gotten better at it. I think Pam is generally better than me. I think us artistic folks, we all just want to be like, I'm just doing my art in the corner, and you throw the money at me. You throw money at the bucket that's in the other corner, and I'll pick it up later. No one steal it, please.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my God.
But the truth is, you have been able to build a successful business in service to communities of color all around the United States without you needing to do any of those bro tactics that a lot of other folks are doing. So let's just celebrate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about Money Monk and what were complicator, and then the other two.
The other side of the coin for a complicator is a contemplator. So complicators try and make everything a priority, and we feel like we have to think about everything at once. And contemplators make nothing a priority. So ends up happening is the priority is whoever is knocking down your door the loudest. Contemplators don't want to think about money at all. They'd rather be thinking about anything else all the time.
Yeah, the contemplator is the one that will actually be making a bunch of money, and then they don't have to think about it, and they'll have something bubbling in the back, and out of nowhere they'll get hit with this huge bill, and they're like, where did that come from? It's because you ignored it for 6 years.
Yeah. And so contemplators, it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. Contemplators just have an aversion to thinking about it, and such an aversion often that, like Dyalekt said, sometimes there's a bill, sometimes there's money that's meant to be coming in, and they don't receive it because they don't have a mechanism to, right?
Companies who make people opt into stuff love contemplators. Those are the people they're counting on to not cash in.
Stuff. Yeah, exactly. And so with contemplators, one thing that we've learned is with contemplators and money monks in particular is that you have a threshold for how long you can think and talk about money, and to know what that threshold is and to honor it, right? You don't have to be able to think about money for 2 hours. You don't have to sit down every day and look at everything. But if you give yourself like 15 minutes a week or half an hour a month, and you know that you need to take care of these priorities so they don't become a bigger problem, then that can allow you to be a contemplator who can truly be at peace with money. And I think that's the thing about contemplators is they don't want to think about it because it stresses them out, but thinking about it and not thinking about it ends up stressing them out.
Yeah, it's real similar to the money monk, except they are stressed out and thinking about it, where we're like, oh, we're over here zen meditating from it.
Yeah, exactly.
So the other side of the coin on the, I guess,
The
spontaneity tip
yes.
is the paper chaser. The
Yes.
paper chaser is similar to the money monk in that they're not really thinking about the money they have in their account because they are really confident that they're going to make that money back some other kind of way.
Yes.
There's this great, I mean, I love the perspective like, okay, so I want to buy this thing that's $5,000. Well, then I'm going to get a second job or get a raise at my job or sell this thing and I'll make that $5,000.
Yeah.
And it's another one of those ones where when the money's coming in, it's all good. And you don't even really notice that there's a problem. But when that check becomes 5 and 6 months late, then you're noticing I don't actually have savings.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with paper chasers is they often think that their money is not doing enough if it's not out there.
Yeah,
like
if
we're
it's
saying
just
about like how
sitting there.
money's not ours and like you can't sit and hold it forever.
Yeah.
But it is important to have some kind of savings, and paper chasers are like, nah, that money needs to go to work.
Yes, it needs to be out there for me. Yeah, their whole solution to their money problems is I'll just make more money and it will solve all my problems, right? Yeah.
Ooh.
So the thing with paper chasers that we usually advise is to think of your savings account as another stream of income. So your savings is not this static thing that's sitting there in a pile doing nothing, right? It's there for you for later to access. So that way, if that check doesn't come in 6 months, then you have this other stream of income that you have as a backup. And the other thing with paper chasers that we've learned too is that they're really great at short-term planning, but have a hard time thinking further out and doing long-term planning. And so that often helps paper chasers to recognize like, oh, I know how to plan for next week or next month or even next year, but the idea of thinking about something 5 years from now feels overwhelming. So how do we break that down for them?
Yeah, it's taking these large goals and breaking them down into accomplishable ones that have the benefit. Because I think paper chasers really love the transactions, like I did this and I won in the short term. So we create these small short-term wins for us to get the larger, more existential one.
Wow, I feel like I just booked like a psychic reading, but really it's more about money and you are reading me like a book, but I also know that I'm not alone. And so we have money monk, complicator, is that right? Complicator?
Yep.
And contemplator and paper chaser. So if you're listening, feel which ones activated your nervous system and get the support you need to be able to heal from this, because I'm really excited to continue working with Pamela and Dyalekt to heal this part of me, because you can even hear it when I said it earlier. I'm like, oh, it's like, just create the thing and people will come. And I mean, it's worked for me, but Dyalekt was all like, yeah, but make sure to keep some for yourself. I'm like, I'm not there yet. And I know that it's more than just putting together an Excel sheet and finding which investments will be the best. A lot of it is just like my ability to know that it is safe for me to have it as well, and keep some of it and know that I'm allowed to enjoy it versus feeling like I need to contribute to every campaign or GoFundMe because I'm just like, oh, I'll find a way to make more of it. Yeah, I'm that money monk and paper chaser for sure.
Well,
So
a money monk thing, I want to throw out another money monk tip, like on the GoFundMe tip. I had to do this for myself. Set a budget for it. Give yourself an arbitrary number. It's okay if it's high, as long as it's something you can afford. Like, give yourself this arbitrary number and say, I'm going to spend this on GoFundMes and taking care of people. And once you hit the limit, be like, I've hit the limit there. Make that an item, make a plan for it, so then your emotions don't drag you out of it. I also wanted to say real quick that these money personalities, I love what you're saying about healing, but remember that the money personalities are defense mechanisms that are our white blood cells fighting things off. you know, they are because of trauma. We don't want to try to get rid of our money personalities. They're probably always going to live with us. We're not trying to change them.
They protect us for one reason or another.
There's no worse or better one. These are just the tendencies we have, and we're healing ourselves by having an understanding. You know, I've been going to therapy lately, and they've been talking about sit with your feelings. Don't just get over your feelings. And that's what we're asking folks to do with the money personalities. Sit with these feelings, acknowledge them, understand them, embrace them, and do the thing that is healthy for you.
Yeah, thank you. And it's important to know that support is available, because when you learn about your personality type and you look back on your life to see your tendencies, there will come a time where you're going to need support. And I think one of the big, like, entrepreneurship for me has been my biggest healing journey, because it has taught me how important it is to reach out for help. And honestly, my business has grown as a result of me getting people like y'all on my team whenever I'm having those kinds of breakdowns. And like, I was working with y'all when I had a business coach, but I didn't know anything about money. And just thank you so much for creating that safe container for me to now be able to have these conversations with even more confidence, even though it like, the fact that it's still bringing up stuff in me tells me that I still have a ways to go. So share with us about your programs and how it is, like, what would people walk away with if they were to be in your container?
Yeah, that's great.
I love it.
Also, thank you for saying that. You know, it's really good for, you know, using community to build up the immunity.
Oh, you and your rhymes. He's dropping all the mics. It's true.
I got a spare one. I because seriously, mine is about to drop.
Oh my gosh, for real. No, and I still have a lot of healing around money that I have to do too. And I'm a financial planner and I'm in this profession. And I think we all do. I think that acknowledging that is one of the harder things. It's a thing that we're taught to hide from, and we're taught to ignore. One of the things that I always say is my biggest competition is not another financial planner. It's someone just not doing anything. Because it does feel easier in the moment to not do anything, right?
Isn't that Netflix's biggest competition?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Are you still watching? Our programs are really designed for us to kind of walk with you in this. We're not going to do everything for you. We're also not going to just like give you a plan and say, here, good luck, have fun. Because we realize that doesn't work. A lot of the people that we work with are people who are dealing with a lot of trauma around money. And also we work with a lot of POC who have never really dealt with it and are also dealing with like generational trauma in terms of having to take care of family members who are older than them, parents, other relatives, things like that. A lot of our clients are people who are, you know, POC, first generation immigrant, first generation college grad, first generation with a professional salary. Mm-hmm. They're making more money than their parents have. And they are that anchor for their families. Mm-hmm. And so our programs are centered around that. We work with everyone, but because we have designed our programs to center around those folks, our program works for everyone. The main program that we have is called Budge, and it is a 12-month one-on-one financial planning, coaching, and advocacy program. So we do financial planning for you. We also serve as your financial coach. So we meet with you once a month, and we serve as your financial advocate, which means we also will get on the phone with you in a collections agency and negotiate on your behalf, right? We'll also get on a screen share with you and help you open your IRA for the first time, things like that. So there's a lot of, here's the plan, but hey, we're going to do it together. There's also another program we have called Nudge, which is a 3-month financial planning intensive where you'll be able to, if you're someone who's like, you know what, I just need to know what to do and I'm confident that I can do it with some guidance, then you can get a financial plan in 3 months. You'll have some email support afterwards and a financial advocate call to do that, and then you'll be on your way. And then the program that you were in, June, which we open up 3 times a year, is called Sea Change, and that is a group financial planning community for people of color.
Yeah, it's group financial planning so that we can do a lot of these similar touch points that you can have in Budge and Nudge, but also the community building aspect. And on the real financial planning, what's the thing I always keep saying? It's not a luxury, it's an expensive necessity. It's not cheap to be able to do this. And we don't just say because of like expertise and all that, just the parts and the movingness of it all is a lot. So we try to make this as affordable as possible to give people an inroad to starting to deal with their finances.
Yeah.
And that's where the community really comes in handy, because instead of having someone like Pam or someone from the team ushering you through everything, we need you to be able to usher each other through everything.
Yeah, and I think that having a POC only space to talk about your finances and to really unpack everything, and to be able to talk about the racial wealth divide, to talk about white supremacy, to talk about how you're treated at your job, things like that, and for people to just get it, has been such a huge thing for a lot of the people in that community.
Invaluable to me. It just not only to talk about money, but to talk about solutions and learning together. And I feel like what I have learned is that when I am investing in these kinds of containers, it forces me to say no to the things that have actually been distracting me. Or the things that I've been mindlessly spending money on, because I'm like, okay, this money is also for me to be accountable with doing this very thing that I've been running from.
Yep.
So, okay. Yeah, it's so, whew, so much healing that has been happening as a result of this process.
Just in case you are unsure about where to go with these things and not ready to get into one of these programs, we also have our Brunch Budget podcast. It's part of the Race and Wealth Network, where you can check out. We're over 200 episodes deep. We ended somewhere in the fall after like running weekly, answering pandemic questions. But we're starting back up again with the new season. We've got a lot of great episodes of the Brunch Budget podcast where we talk about personal finance and racial economic inclusion. We also play indie hip hop and R&B songs from artists who create works about the subject matter. You'd be amazed. We did stuff about student loans. I found like 10 songs that were titled F. Sally Mae, let alone all the stuff all in there. That's why they had to change it. But we've got those things. And also we work with youth. We have a company called Pockets Change where we do youth work and intergenerational workshops if you're looking for schools or families.
Yes. Okay. What is it that you have learned to release in this process? And also, what is it that you have been doing to stay grounded in these times?
Yeah. I think I mentioned it earlier, but it bears mentioning again because I am actively still working on it, is my need to be in control of everything. I am used to being the go-to person. I'm used to the person who's like, oh, I'll figure it out. I'll get it done, right? I'm the like, oh, give it to Pam. She'll get it done kind of person. I've always been that in work. I've been that in my family. And I'm learning to let go of that and be okay with, I think you said it the other day, Dyalekt. It's okay if you just have to hold up the part and not do anything else.
Yep.
You don't have to run the show. You can just hold up the piece of paper.
Yep. That's really important.
Yeah.
What have I been letting go of? I have a tendency to let perfect be the enemy of good. And similar to my money monkness, I guess partially through my money monkness, I'm always thinking about the big picture and am I really helping? Am I doing this and doing that? And it causes so much hesitation in the work that I do. I end up not advocating for more money or even more time to do the work for myself, advocating for creative works and my centering and placement. I always worry about the whole big picture thing with that. And I'm learning to let go of that as much as I can. I say that because I've been sitting and thinking about the grounded question, and I don't know if I am. I occasionally, like, Pam will grab my ankle, but I'm mostly not grounded.
You know, I would have to agree with you. I think this year has upended a lot of things. I think that there are a lot of opportunities that came out of this year, but one of the things that is my goal for 2021 is to allow rest time and to figure out what makes me feel grounded. One of the things I'm doing this year is I've unequivocally decided to just take Wednesdays off. And that is like my goal for 2021. If I can have most Wednesdays off, as in not working, not on my laptop, not looking at emails, I think that will help me figure out what I need to be grounded.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's the search for grounding. Because I was just like running in my head, like this whole thing you were saying about like, yo, I'm making six figures now and I don't know what to do with that and all these things. If we get ourselves to the point where we're making the kind of money that we want to, but we continue to be racked by the guilt about it and stressed out about it, then we're not going to do that thing that we promised ourselves when we said that if I get there, I'm going to help everybody. We won't be able to because we'll be too busy dealing with our own lack of health.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I have one final question, and I just invite you to tune in to whatever wisdom is already inside of you. But if you can envision yourself as a future ancestor speaking to either you today or that version of yourself when you had no idea you would be doing the work that you're doing today, and you were in that moment of doubt of like, what am I doing with my life? What is it that you would say?
You're always doing what you are always doing. Remember that all of your actions, your mistakes, your failures, your successes, the times you got angry and the times you got over it are all the building blocks for what you're doing. That is your foundation. And you will get the stuff that comes out of that. It won't necessarily be fair because fair is about skin color, but it'll be yours.
Oh.
I was just pulling something out. I didn't know if it was what I was saying.
Oh, that was so good. You're gonna get a kiss for that later.
We're nice to each other, y'all. That's part of it.
Oh man. Yeah, that it's so funny because the question that you asked, I like thought of the corporate version of that question, right? About like, what would you tell your future self about your success in the next 5 years and blah, but you're not asking that, right? You're asking something that like resonates beyond whatever this like structure and these things that we've created for ourselves are. And I'm like watching my son come down the stairs right now.
He's a reincarnated ancestor.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's
you know what? Don't tell your ancestor. Tell the baby.
I'll tell the baby. Isagani. Isagani is actually one of the last few indigenous Filipino names that are left pre-Spanish colonization. And you know what, Isagani? One thing that I will say is that my goal with this baby and to tell my future ancestor self is that I feel like it's more important to catch every smile that Isagani makes than to try and get that next dollar. You know, yes. I'm someone who always struggles with what is enough, right? And, you know, we have enough. I think that's what I would tell myself. We have enough. Yeah. We've never not had enough.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, you two, for sharing your profound wisdom and life experience with us. I encourage everybody to please go to brunchandbudget.com. If anything, just to listen to the podcast episodes and begin healing your relationship with money and finances, and know that there is an abundance of support out there, especially if you are new to this, because like we are cheering you on from the other side, and so are your ancestors. So I love you all, and I'm so excited to continue this journey with you.
Thank you. Same here. So this was really, this was a lot. This was good. A good lot, but like, whew, I feel like I need to take a break. Like this was a therapy session. We need to debrief. We're gonna debrief after this. Until
great. But remember, you already have everything it is you need, and you've done enough, and so now you just get to show up and be you, and we love you just for that. So
that's right. Show up and be you. Show up.